How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Kafches, Daf 108 of Masechet Ksubis, friends. Well, I don't know, what the heck does Daf Kuf 8? Yo, I don't know, all this stuff is so crazy. Alright, but we're getting back into a regular flow pretty soon. It's Chagim, man. Insane. It's like, totally roller coaster. Yeah, okay, we're talking about some random stuff. Like, basically kind of like almost until the end of Ksubis, we're just like talking about random complicated stuff. Alright. Although today I don't think it's that complicated. Alright, so we're going to start off Kuf Zayin and Beis about at the Mishnah, like 4 or 5 lines from the bottom. So you have a fellow who traveled someplace. So you have a fellow, he travels someplace, but his wife is like friggin' starving. So some other guy comes along, and he's a good Samaritan, and he says, alright, don't worry. Here, you need money for groceries? Here's money for groceries. Chonan Omer, Iberes Ma'osav. Chonan says, the guy, what do we say in some other places? That he throws his money into the Yam HaMelach, into the Dead Sea. Basically, he's not getting that money back. Meaning, the husband was away. Some guy stepped in and says, alright, I'll pay for your groceries. It says Chonan, the husband has no obligation to pay this guy back who out of nowhere volunteered to pay for his wife's groceries. Whereas the sons of the high priests argue and they say Yeshava Kama Hotzi V'ito. He just needs to swear how much he spent on groceries. And as long as he swears that he spent that amount on this woman's groceries, so then the husband would have to pay this fellow back. And Reb Dosa ben Harkinos Kedivreim, and Reb Dosa ben Harkinos says, like the Bnei Kohanim Gedolim, Amar Yochanan ben Zakkai says, Reb Yochanan ben Zakkai Yofe Omer Chonon, that Chonon Taka said good, that he lost his money. Hiniach Ma'osav al Keren Atzvi. He put his money, Babylon, on the horn of a deer. Have you ever experimented with putting your money on the horn of a deer? It's probably risky. So it was risky. He lost his money. Alright. Says the Gemara. Tanan Osam. We say over there, Masechet Nedarim. Who's ready for Masechet Nedarim? Guys, what do you think Masechet Nedarim is going to be like? What, just like all sorts of vows? Konams and stuff? Whew, that sounds like fun. Looking forward. Tanan Osam. Amudra Anoya Mechavero. Okay, so Shimon says to Reuven, yo, Reuven, Ruby. That was my grandfather. My grandfather was Reuven. Called him Ruby. So Shimon says to Reuven, yo, brother, you can't get any benefit from anything belonging to me. You can't get any benefit from anything belonging to me. That's what Shimon says to Reuven. Shokel is shiklo. Nonetheless, Shimon, dude, I think there's going to be a lot of babble yawns. Oh wait, I guess that's the only problem with standing while I record, is that it's not so easy for me to hit that pause button when I got a babble yawn. So Shokelo is Shiklo. So Shimon, even though Reuven's not letting it benefit from Shimon can nonetheless pay Reuven's machzis hashekel. Uforea es chovo. If Reuven owes money someplace, so Shimon can pay that back for Reuven. I think. Oh wait, what's going on outside? I think the next door neighbor might be yelling. Okay. Enjoy your yelling, next door neighbor. And if Reuven loses Epis, so Shimon can return it to him. Now, if it's a place where normally a fellow who returns a lost object would be compensated for his efforts returning a lost object, so here it's a little tricky. So Rashi points out that it was mutual. Right? Shimon says to Reuven, you don't get no benefit from me. And I guess Reuven also says to Shimon, you ain't get no benefit from me. Or maybe Shimon says, not only Reuven can you not get benefit from me, but also I'm not going to get benefit from you. I think there are people standing outside. Yeah, my next door neighbor is definitely yelling. The thing is, she's not yelling at the people in the park. She's yelling to my parents, I think. I guess she's being friendly. Okay, well, thanks for being friendly. All right. So tipo ano lehektish. Okay. So in here it's a complicated situation because Reuven and Shimon are mutually not allowed to get benefit from one another. So we're saying that Shimon can, if Reuven loses epis, Shimon can return it to him, to Reuven. And now, if it's customary for Reuven to pay Shimon for his efforts in such a case, but he can't pay Shimon because Shimon's not allowed to get benefit from Reuven, so tipol anoy lehektish. So that fee, that money would go to hektish, would go to the temple. Okay. Bishlama shokel lo shiklo mitzvah kavod. I understand that if Shimon is paying for Reuven's machzas shekel, and so even though Reuven's not allowed to get benefit from Shimon, Shimon's nonetheless allowed to pay Reuven's machzas shekel because Shimon's doing a mitzvah. Says the Mishnah, the Tanya, says the Gemara, the Tanya is we learn in a brisa, tormin ala avud, that we separate the machzas shekel even for somebody who is machzas shekel got lost, vala gaboy, or if it was collected but had not yet reached Jerusalem, vala osid legabos. And if it, oh my gosh, so many Bible yards, oh my gosh, you guys are probably all yawning now. What can I do? It's late at night. I don't sleep much these days. Alright, anyways. Vala gabi vala osid legabos. So, and also, even if the machzas shekel hasn't yet been collected, it's still, even if it's not even going to be collected, still, it counts. What does it mean it counts? The machzas shekel, as we learned in Masechta Shkalim, the machzas shekel is collected from all the people, and then it's used to fund the public sacrifices, the public offerings. And what we're saying is that even somebody who didn't even end up separating a machzas shekel, still the public offerings still include him, right? They still count for him. And therefore we see that whether Shimon pays Reuven's machzas shekel or whether he doesn't, Reuven is still included in the korbanos anyway. So Keilu Shimon is doing a mitzvah, but is not, is not benefiting Reuven directly. Theoretically, even if Reuven didn't end up giving the machzas shekel, he would still be counted. So Shimon's doing a mitzvah. He's not that wouldn't be considered benefiting Reuven. Nami mitzvah kavod. So Oichit, Shimon returning a lost object to Reuven, he's doing a mitzvah, Vashavas Aveda, but he's not Davka benefiting Reuven. He's doing a mitzvah with Reuven. Alright, people, stop making noise. Don't you realize I'm like 3 seconds away from you, like recording Babylon Talmud? Alright. Nami mitzvah kavod. So Elo, Parelo es chovo, but the Gemara says, I don't understand. What? Did you guys hear all that noise? That's a lot of noise. So, Elaforelo eschovo akamishtashle. But it says the Gemara, I don't understand why Shimon. Well, how about this? I don't understand if Reuven owes a bunch of money. Why could Shimon pay it back? Isn't he benefiting Reuven? He's paying his bill. He's paying his debt for him. So Amar Vushaya Hamani Chanani. So Vushaya says, well, this is the opinion of Chanan. The Amar that Chanan said in our Mishnah, Iberes Ma'osav. What did Chanan say in our Mishnah? That if a guy goes on a trip somewhere, and then some other guy just steps in and voluntarily pays for his wife's grocery bills, so he lost his money. Kilu, it's not considered like a loan that that he lent the husband money and now he gets paid back. No, he lost his money. He's doing something on his own accord. It's not considered a loan. It's not considered like, it doesn't have any connection to the husband bichlal. So kilu, here oichet, when Shimon steps in out of nowhere and pays off Reuven's loan, that has nothing to do with Reuven. He's just kind of paying the other guy, but it wouldn't be considered like, specifically in the context of some kind of a loan per se. So, therefore, that is why Shimon's allowed to pay off Reuven's loan, because it isn't actually considered like he's benefiting Reuven directly. He's volunteering, of his own accord, and it's like not really considered like paying off a loan per se. He's just doing something without being asked to do it. For Rava, Amar says, Rava, afilu tema rabbana. Even if you say that you can even say it's the rabbis, right? Even the rabbis who say that he swears, right, that the fellow who paid for the wife's bills would just swear that he indeed paid for the bills and then he can get paid back. So it would be considered a loan. So then shouldn't it be considered like Shimon's paying off Ruvain's loan, in which case he's benefiting Ruvain? So says Rava, here we're talking about a situation where when Ruvain borrowed the money, he borrowed the money in such a way that like it was no pressure to get it back. Like he'll pay at some point in the future, whenever you feel like it. So it's not like there was like pressure to pay off this loan, right? It's not like Ruvain had a loan that was due in like, a week and he didn't know what he was going to do and comes Shimon and saves the day. It wasn't like that. Ruvain borrowed money. He had to pay it back at some point. Shimon now comes out of nowhere and pays it off. I was saying it's not really considered, I guess, benefit enough, because it's not like he was, it was kind of a chilled loan anyways. All right. So Bishlam Rav lo Amar Kribushaya. So I understand why Rav didn't say like Rav Ushaya. Rav Ushaya says that this Mishnah is dafka the opinion of Chanun. So I understand why Rava wouldn't want to say like Rav Ushaya, who says that this Mishnah is the opinion of Chanun, because Rava would prefer to say that it's like the rabbis. Right? Better say that it's like the rabbis than like a single opinion of Chanun. Rav Ushaya, my time lo Amar Rava. How come Rav Ushaya, who says that it's the opinion of Chanun, why doesn't he say that Rava, that it's like Rava, that it could even be like the rabbis who treat it as a loan? So Amalach Rav Ushaya, because Rav Ushaya would say to you, Nihide Hanoya Leisle. Granted that maybe Reuven isn't getting benefit per se because he could have paid it off at any time. It wasn't like there was pressure to pay off this debt, but nonetheless, Kisufa Mileisle, it's uncomfortable. Reuven borrowed money from some guy. Maybe he's got like good terms where he could like return it whenever, but like every time he sees the guy, he knows like, oh, I owe that guy money. It's not nice. And by Shimon paying it off, that goes away. He's benefiting him in that sense. Hasumnami Islay Hanoya Be'ayi Hanoya Demichsif Mine. So Reuben gets benefit from so Rav Ushaya would say that Reuben would nonetheless get benefit from the fact that Shimon's paying off this this debt for him, that would be considered Hanoah. That's why Rav Ushaya says it cannot be according to the rabbis. It has to be according to Chanan, which would mean that Shimon's just basically entirely acting on his own accord, but it has no implication in terms of benefiting Reuven per se. Okay. Admon Omer, says our friend Admon, Shiva. Oh, so we said that. Okay, so Chanan had said 2 things. Now Admon says 7 things. Curious what these are. Oh, someone's on the phone. Misha meiz v'niach bonim uvonis. So a fellow who dies, Wellwood, and he leaves sons and daughters. Okay. When the estate is big and gishmak, and there's plenty of money to go around, so abonim yorshim v'abonos nizonis. So the sons inherit the property, the daughters get supported. Now, if there is not a lot of property and there isn't a lot of money in the estate, habonos izonu, so the daughters can get supported, get their mizonis. Ve'abonim yachzu al psochim, but the sons need to go around begging if the estate isn't enough to pay for both of them. Admon Omer says, Admon, b'shvil shani zocher hifsadti? What, just because I'm a boy, I lose out and I have to go begging? Omer Gamliel ro ani as divrei Admon, and says Gamliel, yeah, I agree with Admon. Why do we have to lose out because we're boys? Says the Gemara. My Kamar Abaye, my Kamar, what's he saying? That Kilu, because I'm a boy and I'm better for some reason, why should I lose out? In what way are boys better than girls? Abaye says, Abaye Achi Kamar, this is what it means. B'shvil shani zocher v'roi lasu patorah ifsadti. Oh, because I'm a boy and I should be studying Torah, so therefore I lose out. Amalei Rave says to Abaye, man the osuk batera udi yoris, man the osuk batorah lo yoris. I understand, what does studying Torah have to do with anything? What if you have two siblings, one studies Torah, the other one doesn't? So the one who studies Torah inherits? and not the other one? Elomar Rava, rather says Rava, Hachi Ka'amar, this is what it's saying, Bishvil sha'ani zocher v'roi lirash ben chasim merubin, if sati ben chasim muatim, because I am a boy, and when there's plenty of property, so then I can, I'm zocher, I inherit. So what? So when there's not so much, why do I lose out? Why do I have to be the one to beg? Alright, so this is an interesting Mishnah. You ready? Hatoyin es chaver kadei shemen. Behoda bekankanim. Interesting. So, I guess maybe Ruvain says to Shimon, hey, Shimon, actually, how about this? Let's forget about names. A fellow says to his friend, look, I have you have my pitchers of oil. V'hodu b'kankanim, and he says, I have pitchers. I don't know what you're talking about oil. I have pitchers. Admon omer hol v'hodu b'miktzas atayne yishova. Says Admon that since it's modeh b'miktzas, he needs to swear. Right? Of course, we've learned about tangentially. We've learned about modeh b'miktzas that if a fellow admits to part of a loan, so he has to swear about it, right? So if Reuben says to Shimon, hey Shimon, I lent you $100, right, $1,000, and Shimon says you lent me $500, so he's got to swear about this. So here also, the guy, right, okay, let's get Reuben and Shimon. So Reuben says to Shimon, you have these jugs of oil, and he says, I don't know what you're talking about, jugs of oil. I have jugs. So that would be modeh b'miktzas. He's admitting to part of it, and therefore he has to swear. V'chachamim omrim, whereas the chachamim say, eino doas miktzas mimina taina. This is not considered modeh b'miktzas from like the same kind of topic. Right? These are apples and oranges. Omer Rabban Gamliel, says Rabban Gamliel, roa ani, as Devrei Admon, says Rabban Gamliel, that I'm on Admon's side. I'm on Admon's team. I agree with Admon that it would be considered modeh b'miktzas. Fine. Shma mina l'Rabbanon. So we see according to the rabbis. Let's see. To'ano chitin v'sorin v'hoda b'sorin potter. Oh, friends, you hear the kasha? So we want to understand that the Mishnah is talking about. Reuben says to Shimon, "Hey Shimon, you have my jugs of oil." So it sounds like he's claiming from Shimon two things: jugs and oil. And he's saying, no, I have jugs. I don't know what you're talking about oil, but I have jugs. So Reuven's claiming two items, jugs and oil. Shimon's admitting to one part of it, one of those two items, the jugs. And the Chachamim say that's not considered a modeh b'miktzas, and you would not have to swear. So now, Shma mina l'Rabbanan, so we see from the rabbis who say that when you have jugs and oil being claimed, and he only admits about the jugs so that he wouldn't have to swear. So ta'anochitin v'sorin, if Reuven would say to Shimon, hey Shimon, you have my wheat and my barley, v'hoda b'sorin, he says, no, I only have barley, potter, he would be exempt. Right? Right? Jugs, oil, wheat, barley, when you admit to only one of them, you have to swear. You're potter according to the rabbis. So it sounds like this then would be a kasha on Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel, to Amar Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel, To'anu chitim v'sorim, v'od lo be'echad man, chayiv. Says Rav Nachman in the name of Shmuel, that if Reuben says to Shimon, hey Shimon, you have my wheat and you have my barley, and Shimon only admits to one of them, chayiv. He's taka chayiv. And yet in our Mishnah we seem to be saying that when he's saying that you have two items, the jugs and the oil, and he admits to only the jugs, the Chacham are saying that he's potter. So how could Rav Nachman or Shmuel said he would be chayiv by wheat and barley? Rav Yehuda Amar Rab, says Rav Yehuda Amar Rab, b'to'ano midah. Oh, so it's talking about where Reuven's he's not saying to Shimon, Shimon, you have my jugs of oil, and Shimon saying, I have jugs, I don't have oil. No, that's not what we're talking about. Reuven is saying to Shimon, you have 10 jugs worth of oil that belongs to me. And Shimon is saying, I don't know what you're talking about. Oil? I have your oil? I have pitchers. I have something completely different. I don't have oil, I have pitchers. So in that case, right, it's mamish apples and oranges. Reuven is saying, I have oil. 10 jugs worth of oil, but I have oil by you, right? He's not saying I have jugs and oil. He's saying 10 jugs worth of oil. That's a certain amount of oil. 10 jugs worth. So I have a certain amount of oil by you. And Shimon says, I have your jugs. Mamish apples and oranges. He says you have oil. He says I have jugs. Two different things. If that's the case, my time of the Admon. Well, then how come Admon says that he would have to swear? I mean, it's not mod. If I say you owe me $100 and you say no, only $50, okay, we're talking about dollars, and you're admitting to half of the amount that I'm claiming. This is mamish apples and oranges. He's saying you have oil. He's saying no, I have jugs. They're two separate things. So why would Admon say that you'd be chayiv to swear? So rather says Rav d'chuli alma that everyone would agree. Where Reuven says to Shimon, Milo asore kade shemen yesh li beborcha. So if Reuven says to Shimon, Milo asore kade shemen, 10 jugs worth of oil, yesh li beborcha. Reuven says to Shimon, I have 10 jugs worth of oil in your pit. Meaning he's only talking about oil. He's saying 10 jugs worth of oil. Shemen katoin le. So Reuven is saying to Shimon, I have oil by you. Kankanim lo katoin le. He's not talking about jugs. He's talking about oil alone. Asar kade shemen mileim yesh li etzlecha. And if he says, if Reuven says to Shimon, I have 10 jugs of oil that are filled with oil, and it's at your house, shemen v'kankanim katoin le. So he's saying oil and jugs, right? He's saying I have 10 jugs filled with oil. So he's saying I have jugs and oil at your house. So he's claiming both. Ki plige, where Admon and the Chacham are and the Chacham argue, is heicha de amar le asara kade shemen yeshli etzlicha. What about when Reuven says to Shimon, I have 10 jugs of oil by you? Is it only referring to the oil, or is it also referring to the jugs? Admon Omer yesh b'loshen azeh loshen kankanim. Admon says, well, this isn't just oil. It doesn't imply just oil, right? When I say, right, 10, when I say that I have 10 jugs of oil, so says Admon, it's not just oil, it's also the jugs. So he's basically saying I have jugs and oil, and Shimon's only admitting to the jugs. So it's modeh b'miktsas. V'abanan savre, whereas the rabbis hold, ein b'loshen azeh loshen kankanim. No, it doesn't include also the pitchers, right? When you say asar kadei shemen, that's only talking about oil, it's not talking about the pitchers. And therefore, Reuven is saying, I have oil, Shimon is saying, no, you have pitchers, it's apples and oranges, therefore you're potter. So 1 second, fact the Gemara. Elataimo te'ein b'loshen hazeh loshen kankanim. So you're saying that, okay, so the only reason why the Chachamim say that he'd be potter from swearing is because the loshen that he used of asara kadei shemen only implies oil, it doesn't imply the pitchers. Hayesh b'loshen hazeh loshen kankanim. But if it implied oil and pitchers, and Shimon applied to just the pitchers, then what? We're saying that the Chacham would agree with Admon that he'd be chayiv to swear because he's claiming the oil and the pitchers, and he's only admitting about the pitchers. Shimon's only admitting about the pitchers. So Leimet Havituvte de B'chia Bar Abba. Sounds like this should be a kasha in B'chia Bar Abba. Dama B'chia Bar Abba. To'anu chitin v'sorim. That if Reuven says to Shimon, I have wheat and barley by you, v'hodelo be'echod mehem, and Shimon says, yeah, I admit to one of them. Not wheat and barley, but just one of them. Maybe just the barley, maybe just the wheat. Potter. So it says Reb Chia Bar Abba that he's potter. But we're saying that the Chachamim are saying that if it's oil and jugs, everybody agrees, right? We're saying everybody would agree that if it's oil and jugs and he admits to the jugs, he'd be chayiv. How could Reb Chia Bar Abba say that when he claims wheat and barley and he claims to one of them, he's potter? So Amr Shimon Bar Ashi Naise Kemisha Tano Rimon Bikli Pasul. Oh. So says the Gemara, well, the thing is that when it comes to the jugs of oil, a jug of oil is basically like a pomegranate, that the seeds are together with the peel, I guess, the thing that is around the pomegranates. The peel, I guess, the outside, the rind, the skin, the peel. What's on an orange? A peel, right? Okay, let's call it a peel. Right? So therefore we want to say, look, you can't really compare a situation of wheat and barley, which are obviously two separate things, and a jug of oil, which is more like a pomegranate, right, where you have the seeds inside of a peel, but it's really the same thing. That's not comparable to wheat and barley, which are obviously two separate things. Excuse me, I got a chapashtik of water. Maskif lo Ravina. So Ravina asks a kasha. Rimon below kliposo lo minter. 1 second. Don't compare to me a jug of oil and a pomegranate. The seeds of the pomegranate without the peel are going to be ruined. Shemen minter below kankanim. But oil could be preserved just fine without jugs, right? As long as it's in a pit or something like that, it doesn't need the jugs per se. So elo hochab mayaskinon de'omele asara kade shemen yeshli etzlicho. No, rather it's talking about a situation where Reuven says to Shimon that I have 10 jugs of oil. Shimon, you have 10 jugs of my oil. Right, fine. I have 10 jugs of oil by you. And Shimon says, look, I don't know what you're talking about when it comes to oil. And also when it comes to the jugs, you didn't give me 10, you gave me 5. Right, so chamisha islach v'chamisha leislach. You have 5, you don't have 5 kilo. It's not 10, it's 5. Admon Omer yesh beloshen azeh loshen kankanim. So Admon says, look, when he says that asara kadeh shemen yesh li etzlecha, when Reuven says to Shimon, I have 10 jugs of oil by you, it implies oil, but it also implies the jugs, and therefore what's happening is, right, umigo de kameshtaba kankanim mishtaba nami hashemen ayde gilgul. Oh, so what's happening over here is that Ammon says that when it says asara kadeh shemen, it implies not just the oil but also the jug. So now Reuven is saying to Shimon then, right, that I have 10 jugs of oil by you. So it's the jugs and it's the oil. And what does Shimon say? Shimon says, okay, first of all, I don't know what you're talking about when it comes to the oil. Now, when it comes to the jugs, it wasn't 10, it was 5. So therefore, he has to swear memele for the jugs, right? Because, right, Reuven saying it was 10, he's saying it's 5. It's more than mixas. So he has to swear for the jugs. And once already he's swearing for the jugs, so in Oichid, he swears about the oil as well. Alright? Rabban and Savir was the rabbis say, Ein b'loshen hazeh loshen kankanim. Whereas the rabbis say that asar kadeh shemen does not imply that there are also jugs there, and therefore, when Shimon says, that it wasn't 10 jugs, it was 5 jugs. Mashatano lo hodelo, umasha hodelo lo toano. Reuven saying, according to the rabbis, right, when he says that I have 10, right, asar kadeh shemen, that's only talking about oil. It's not talking about pitchers, and therefore he's saying, look, I lent you oil, and he's saying, it's not 10 pitchers, it's 5 pitchers. I mean, I'm talking about oil, he's talking about pitchers. It's two separate things. You can't, so it's not comparable, and therefore he's not admitting to anything. If he's not admitting to anything, he doesn't have to swear. Friends, that was Daf Kufches of Masechet Ksubis. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.